Yeah, you were right. That's where I left the tape measure. Thank you. Well, here we are. I do have the batteries hooked up. Now, one thing that confuses me a little bit, this is called a knife switch simply because when you throw it up, it connects by putting that blade in there. And they've taken one blade off. So that cable runs up to this switch, which takes the place of this blade, and I don't really understand that, why they did that. I see how they did it, but I don't understand why. So here we are. I'm going to throw the knife switch in. Okay. Let's see what we have. There's the battery voltmeter gauge, and here is, I'm going to pull up on that big red switch. Ooh. Now, it looked like the gauge went the wrong direction. So there's a question about polarity here, which is, I'll have to follow those cables down to the battery box. They might be mislabeled down in the battery box, but that was an interesting clue that this heater came on. Did you hear the heater fan come on? It's DC. It can run forward or backwards. It doesn't really care. We're going to do it one more time. If this drops backwards, we've got a battery polarity problem. If that fan runs, then we know we have continuity and we have DC voltage. So here is the cab heater switch to on. Here's the red button. There's the gauge. Listen for the heater. Sure enough, heater's running, but I don't dare start or do much other than that right there. If there was a bulb up there in the cab light, it would light negative or positive ground. But I'm going to have to trace that problem down. I'll be back after I do that. Okay, so I'm back onto the project of tracing these battery cables. I've got a hunch that they're mislabeled out in the battery box. So what we want to do, this is positive coming from the battery. It's on the left right here. As I feel down the back there, it stays on the left. I can get my arm pretty much way down in there. Coming out the bottom, it's on the left. Now right here, the left cable becomes the top cable. Now I gotta get my head way down in there. Ow. Okay, the left cable stays on the left, then becomes the top cable, and is the closest cable to the wall toward that direction. That's positive. Let's go out and see how it's labeled. I think it's backwards, and that's why the gauge goes the wrong way. Well, here's where the battery cables come through. Now, we said this one was positive, the one closest to the wall, closest to the cabinet. I'm out here on this side of the locomotive. That is one labeled negative. This one, which we thought was the negative, is the one labeled positive, and that I've got to the positive post of the battery. So we just tracked down. I appreciate your help. We just found that that was the problem and why the battery gauge went the wrong way. Now that was for us an indicator, and we were sharp enough to stop right there. We didn't try and start it. We went and found the problem. Good work, people. Okay, so I've literally just turned these batteries around. I undid this. I undid the positive and the negative, took the three batteries, rotated them, and now we're ready to see what we've got. You always do a little am I sure test. Yes, I'm sure. I was sure. I was right. And then we're going to tighten these down, run up in the cab, and see if the battery gauge goes the right direction. So this was mislabeled, which is a great point. Whenever you're working on older equipment, you think, well, it's got the hydraulic hose has to run here because that's the way it was when I got the piece of equipment. I never trust that, because how do you know the guy that put it there even knew what he was doing? If it's brand new, it's a better assumption, but if it's used equipment, here's an excellent example. This battery box is labeled wrong, and that's because this machine has been rewired. These are new cables. Remember, we commented we didn't like them because they weren't long enough. I sure wish they'd put another foot on it. I had to throw in this jumper, so that's problematic. But let's go up, see if this flipped it around. When we pull in the gauge, we have positive volts. Well, any good Will It Run series has got to start out with a discussion of batteries. Whether you're starting a bulldozer, an old crane, or a locomotive, you got to have juice to turn the engine at a rate fast enough to pick up fuel, to have oil pressure, to chase the mice out. So we're going to spend a little bit of time on batteries. Let's go ahead and get class started. Rosie Lynn, take the earbuds out. I know you like music and to hear me talk at the same time, but let's get class started. So what I've got here are 3 batteries. These are 12 volt batteries. Now you know they're 12 volt because they say 12 volt, but if you were at a tractor show looking at an old farm-all and some guy walked up and said, hey, that's cool, that's got the old 6 volt battery in it, you'd think, well, he's pretty smart, pretty knowledgeable. But the truth is, all he did was counted the little white caps on the top of the battery, because each cell in a battery is 2 volts. So an old battery, like in a Model A or a farm-all tractor, has got 3 caps. That's a 6 volt system. This would have 6 cells in each battery, 2 volts per cell, 12 volt battery. Now we don't have the caps to count anymore because they went maintenance free, but if you see a row of 6 caps on the top of a battery, it's a 12 volt battery. Now we talked about this locomotive requiring 32 volts nominally, and you're wondering, how am I going to do that? Golf car batteries, automotive batteries, truck batteries, fork truck batteries. What I've done right here, I've got 3 truck batteries, and you can see they're hooked together. But how did I do it, and why did I do it the way I did? Well, what you need as a basis for this understanding is what series is, something hooked up in series or something hooked up in parallel. Now, if you were to walk up and you saw this strap right here along the tops of these batteries, you would say those are parallel together. So if you're at a truck auction, Ritchie Brothers truck auction, you open the battery box and there's 3 batteries, you see this across all 3 positive posts and this across all 3 negative posts. What you have is a very large 12 volt battery made up of 3 12 volt batteries. They are parallel together. It's still 12 volts. Now you have a lot of amperage. You want that truck to start in the winter, you're probably going to need 3 batteries parallel together. But that's not what we wanted here, so we used the other system called series. Now, I've got a whiteboard here. What I'm going to draw is what you were looking at in there. So we've got 3 batteries. They're 12 volt each, and on the top of each one of them is a negative and positive post. And I put them in the box intentionally to be able to put a jumper from here to here. Some of you are losing your mind. You just went from positive to negative. That's absolutely right. I did. That's called series. So if you took a voltmeter right now from this negative post and this positive post, what would this read right here? 24 volts. Because I took 2 12s, seriesed them together. Now, to make this even a little more exciting for you, I'm going to come from this positive to this negative. What kind of Frankenstein machine are we building here? What would I have now? 36 volts. 12, 24, 36. So we are going to take the positive lead coming out of the electrical cabinet, go right to here, and the negative lead coming out of the control box going right to here. Negative cable going to the first negative post, positive cable going to the positive post. Now, I guess we could use this as a learning experience. What would happen if I put this cable to here? No, you wouldn't get fireworks, a big flash, We wouldn't melt anything. You'd only have 24 volts. You would be eliminating this battery and going right to here where you would have two 12-volt batteries series to 24. Today's coffee time is sponsored by Diner 23. This is a nice little diner in a small town in southern Ohio, Waverly, Ohio. I like the diner. That's just a neat little town, and it's got two railroads, Norfolk Southern. They're both running north-south right there along the river valley, and they run a lot of trains per day. Waverly, Ohio, Diner 23. Thank you. Now, what you're going to see, this contactor is going to come in. It's going to look and sound violent, but it's just the way this is. So we are getting excellent contact and voltage. That tells me those three 12-volt batteries are probably up to the task. That arc is what you get out of DC voltage, and that's why there's an arc chute on there. That chute contains that arc and keeps it funneled and keeps it safe. Can you? I don't know that the camera's getting that. Let me get another view. Yeah. Okay, let's take the next step. Okay, I'm super glad you're here. I need your help. I need you to watch this end. I'm going to run into the start button. We're going to see if we got the voltage, the current, we got everything right. What we want to do is see if this engine turns. We don't really want it to start right now. We still got to go look at fuel filters. Oh yeah. Okay, this is the PT pump we talked about. This right here is the emergency shutoff. That's what we're counting on to shut this down. Now I'm going to have that shut off for this procedure. I've checked the oil in the engine, the oil in the compressor. What we want to do is see if we can rotate the engine right now. Not going to try and start it, but you should hear it rotate and want to start. Stand by. I'll run in and hit the button. How about that, fans? Tune in this weekend. I think you're going to see this thing fire up. We have enough battery. We have the polarity right. Next, we're going to look at the fuel filters. Oil is good. I think this engine is going to fire right up. Stay tuned. We're going to try it.